and our organization was founded in 1944 on a voting rights issue where American Indians were not allowed to vote in the states of New Mexico and Arizona because even though they were citizens of the United States, those states didn't consider them citizens of those states and tried to get in the way of their right to vote back in 1944, 45, and those years. And NCA was founded on this. So this is extremely important to us to be focused on civic engagement issues that speak to our representation. We are also a community that is often invisible to most of this country. Many people, their only connection or knowledge of Indian country is through some inappropriate use of a mascot of a sports team, whether it be at the professional level, high school level, or college level. Many don't have any connectivity or knowledge that even the American Indian and their reservations exist today. And when we look at the census and how important that is to us, there's a couple things that come to mind. It has been raised by my colleagues, three things: funding, representation, and for Indian country, the data is very important to tribal leaders in managing their communities and leading their communities. The United States has a treaty and trust responsibility to tribal nations in this country. There are over 380 treaties that were signed between tribal nations and the federal government that said, we are going to take care of you, your infrastructure, your healthcare, your education, economic development forever in exchange for the millions of acres that the tribal nations ceded to the United States for settlement. And when you look at it, bad census and improper numbers that fall short of really counting the number of American Indians and Alaska Natives that live in this country and where they are, the funding that is promised in those treaties is forever harmed. The representation that's promised in those treaties is forever harmed. In the previous census, Indian suffered an undercount that was more than 2 times the national average. Today, we see the self-response rate 25 percentage points below that of the national average. And although a lot of concerns exist with the barriers that existed with enumeration, that included this pandemic, where Indian country saw infection rates almost 4 times the national average and hospitalization rates almost 6 times the national average. We saw reservations have to close down their communities to keep their people safe because of the existing health disparities, because of decades of underfunding for healthcare. It's been really difficult for Indian country to get properly counted. And although we experienced all those concerns, and now apparently that is over and cut short, there are still many concerns left moving forward that really are threats also to an inaccurate count. The Census Bureau normally needs 5 months to process the data, and now there's less than 3 months to produce the apportionment counts, and the time to produce the redistricting file is decreased significantly, meaning that American Indians and Alaska Natives may not be accurately represented in the data. During the data processing period, important accuracy checks need to happen to the process of assessing the data. Without those checks, the data will become more inaccurate. And the use of administrative data is always a problem for American Indians, Alaska Natives, since race, ethnicity is often not present. There's also less time to allow stakeholders to give input on the disclosure avoidance system, and for the US Census Bureau to ensure that the data will be both private and accurate. Indian country has significant concerns that American Indian, Alaska Native data and data on tribal nations will be inaccurate also due to the disclosure avoidance system. There has never been enough of meaningful tribal consultation that is deserved in these kind of situations. This country has an obligation to communicate with Indian country, hear their concerns, and meet the challenges and find solutions that make sure we're not left behind or continue to be invisible to many parts of this country and invisible to the important funding that this country owes Indian country through the past couple of 100 years. We're really concerned, and we really are not going to be quiet as we move forward on this.